thing that alarms me the most is just because I'm leaving Jackson, they think that I'm leaving African Americans. I don't know if you noticed or not, but I'm black.
So they won't let prime time shine. Hey, what's up, guys? It's Nick Davenport here, aka Mr. Mental Muscle. We have another episode today on the Mental Breakdown channel. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe to this channel. And today I want to do something a little bit different. I'm gonna call this my breakdown because this topic about Deion Sanders leaving Jackson State University and going over to the University of Colorado is getting a lot of traction, a lot of buzz, some good, some not so much. And a lot of it's coming from the Black community because he's leaving the HBCU. If you don't know what that is, that's a historically Black college or university. Now, the reason why I want to call it my breakdown, because if you didn't know, I'm actually a product of the HBCU. I went to the great Bethune-Cookman University from the year 2007 to 2011. And I actually was a collegiate athlete there on the track and field team. So I have a pretty unique perspective because obviously, you know, I break things down through psychology, and I am in the psychology field as an applied psychologist. And I work with many populations, including athletes. So my take on this is pretty unique, and I want to give it to you guys. Now, first and foremost, I think Deion Sanders should do what's best for him and his family. That outright, that's all I care about for him. Now, people are getting to argue with me because they feel he brought all this attention, all this light to Jackson State, and he did some great things there. And I don't get why people are mad about that. But I also understand that for a legacy as an HBCU, getting all that attention, it could lead to more things happening in the Black community as far as college sports. Now, it's not unheard of HBCUs getting attention because a lot of them already are playing bigger name schools. So they're getting that limelight. They're getting paid to play these bigger schools. So Deion didn't do anything new in that regard, but people are knocking him as finish what he started. He's a leader, right? He's a coach. He's a mentor to these kids. And I think he's done that job pretty well because if you look at it, just in the football stats alone, I believe he only lost 3 games in his seasons there. And that's unheard of a lot of times for any coach, let alone just a HBCU. So regardless of the division, regardless of being an HBCU college, he did his thing. Now, from a mentor standpoint, he was trying to build these student athletes who are Black males predominantly to build them up as people, as students, as men, because student comes first. And as like I said, I was a former student athlete. I ran track. My primary events were the jumps, sprints. I actually played football, and I was a decent prospect for where I'm from in South Florida. I ended up just doing track in college. And if you look at the numbers, the bigger picture, everyone keeps saying, well, what about the school? What about HBCUs, the Black community, the culture, right? But the bigger picture is these actual kids who are playing. And a lot of people don't even know the stats. At any given time, about 3 million high school athletes are playing. And regardless of sport, 3 million athletes. So hold that number in your head. Now, for that chance of that athlete of any sport, male or female, going to a pro level is 0.13%. Think about that. It's not a big number. And I'll get to the breakdown of that. Now, out of those who go to college, only about 2% will go to the pros. Now, that's more, but it's still a small percentage of a smaller pool. Now, if you look at that math, you're talking about only about 3,000 people are going to go to that level annually to some extent, and they're probably not going to last too long. We can get into that on another video about the longevity of any pro sport. But the big picture I'm going back to is, what about the long term? What about the culture? What about the community, right? So let's run with that. So we're talking about only a few thousand people making it to the highest level. Where are the other 2 million plus people going? So they need a life after sport. And coming back to the point of this video with Deion Sanders, these are young Black men he's coaching. And here's some more stats. So Black males make about 2.8% of all college undergrads, right? So out of that 2.8%, that's a very small number. So any campus you go on, they're pretty much the minority. And I'm probably sure that's not a surprise of any sort. But if you look at the actual makeup of student athletes, 76% are African-American males. Think about that number. 76% of the athletes are Black males, but only 2.8, almost 3% of actual attendees of a college are Black males. So if you see the representation skewed, so it means more than likely, if you meet a Black person in a college, a male especially, they're more than likely on a team. And like I said, I'm one of those people. So it makes sense. And that number is even bigger at a PWI because obviously at a HBCU, most of the students are Black. And for those who don't know, HBCU, like I said, is historically Black college or university. And all that means is it was founded for Black people. It doesn't mean it's only black people. People used to ask me that all the time. Oh, is it only black people? Yes, it's predominantly, but anyone can apply. But typically, it is predominantly black because it was founded during times. Almost every school will be founded during times where black people weren't allowed to study on their own. And my school was founded by Mary McLeod Bethune, who accomplished great things. So that's what HBCU is really about. But going back to the numbers. So out of that 2.8% that will attend an undergrad in college, 76% are going to be on a team. And out of that 76%, 58% will be in basketball and football, the majority of the big name sports. Obviously, there's baseball, there's soccer, there's golf, tennis, but let's be real, the big two are football and basketball. That's where the money goes from college level and obviously at the pro level. So you can see how this is not necessarily the end all be all is getting to a pro level, but why are these numbers like this? Because everyone keeps talking about Deion's letting down the culture. And all honesty, like I said, his first priority is his family, no one else. Yes, he made commitments. He fulfilled a lot of them because I'll tell you, this is going more on my personal experience. When I ran track at Bethune-Cookman University, it wasn't really on my radar. I was getting recruited by schools that were in the SEC, ACC, smaller conference like the Sun Belt for football. I was a safety / linebacker. And basically, I wasn't checking for an HBCU. I wasn't really checking for any D1 AA or under, really. If you don't know sports that well, these are smaller schools that don't play on the bigger stage. As an athlete, and I come from South Florida, to give you some background on that. In South Florida, there's about 15,000 athletes in the BCAA, the Broward County Athletic Association, where I played. And if you don't know about this area, that's Broward County. There's Miami not too far from us. And we produce the most NFL players combined. If you go to an NFL team right now, there's probably somewhere on that team that's from down here. But basically, very competitive. So if you take those numbers, 15,000 athletes just from us, it's not a big pool, and we're some of the best. You think about it, we're just one county out of 67 in Florida, and Florida's just one state out of 50. So these numbers aren't adding up. Like people say, the math ain't mathing. So to put that pressure on Deion as he needs to change the whole world of HBCUs and black sports, that's not fair at all, because this problem has existed way before him, way before me. Like I said, I went to school from 07 to 11 for college. And when I was there, we didn't have a lot of funding. I had a partial scholarship. I had some academic money, I had some book money, some athletic money, but it all came together to get me paid for school. And we didn't even have a facility for the track. We didn't have our own track. We had to go to a school, Mainland High School, where Vince Carter actually played basketball and football. But anyway, and it was about 3 miles from the school. So we had to walk or run to get to practice. And that was part of our warm up. And there's nothing against it. I can say it was character building because we had to work to go work some more and work hard. So it was an experience. But think about that. I didn't have a track to train on. We had to share it with a high school because we didn't have our own facilities. Now, some years later, after I graduated, they actually got a semi-track, like wasn't a full-length track, but semi-track so they can train on campus. And that's an upgrade. And since then, there's been more upgrades to that school. And I love my alma mater. And I'm glad I went there because, like I said, I wasn't checking for HBCU. And I learned that this experience, not just because it was more Black culture, but the fact is, for a student like me, I learned better in those class sizes that were no bigger than 20, 30 people max. Max. I had some classes with only 7 people, and I learned very well in that environment. So when people talk about what is Deion doing, you got to think about the bigger picture. The problem isn't he's not bringing attention to the HBCUs by leaving, going to Colorado. The issue is we need to build up our programs internally regardless, not just from a performance in sports, but just academically, because there's even more stats, because I'm the psych guy. I've checked these numbers that out of about 82 HBCUs in the country, only about 2 have mental health services. So that's a whole nother topic, but we can see how majority of schools, PWIs, predominantly white institutions, they have about 50% of their schools have a therapist or a sports psychologist. So you even see from the mental health standpoint, the accommodations aren't there. So if the real problem is building these programs, maybe people should start talking about putting their own money. Like I say, put your money where your mouth is, putting your own money into programs to help them grow, sending your kids to those schools just in general, not just for sports. Because at the end of the day, these programs have to have students to compete. Now, if they're all going to the bigger schools like Alabama, USC, Florida, whatever it is, you can't do nothing about that. But what you can do is, for those who want to go there, help build it up internally. And I think that's the big picture here. Like I said, this is my breakdown. I'm bringing some stats, but this is a lot of my opinion because, like I said, I walk those halls. You know how hard it is to achieve your best when you're pre-exhausted going to practice, or just mentally stressed because you don't have all the accommodations you need. or traveling even. Long bus rides is what we could afford. That wasn't ideal to perform. Most teams in bigger schools are flying places. And if it is a bus ride, it's better quality. So at the end of the day, you got to think about what's the bigger deal here. Deion going to Colorado, you can't take away from his leadership skills, because if you get to the psychology of it, there's a trait in personality psychology called social boldness. He definitely scores high on that. These are people who are hiring leaders, being able to talk in front of the groups, taking charge. He did that. He was much bigger than a football player, a football coach. But the fact that he was a celebrity, not only just a great football player, a great man, he led his team, built up morale. Granted, going to another school means some of that morale will be lost. And I can't argue that. It will take an effect to the Jackson State community. And this is something you can't undo. But I say be optimistic and say, if we can do this with Deion, why can't someone else come and do this and take the lead from him? Because if you put anything, not just in HBCUs or just even sports, you put anything all on one person, that's a mistake. I talked about this when I consult with teams, organizations. It has to be that divide of power and leadership. Because look what happened. He's left and the world's going crazy, and they're making it more of a black issue. And that's fine. I see that side. We want to build up these teams, but at the end of the day, if you want the solution, you can't put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, right? That someone says that, because there's a bigger issue going on here. It's not just Deion Sanders coaching football. It's more so getting our HBCUs just better overall. Everything else will follow suit. And that starts with us putting our money where their mouth is. I'm going to say what it is. If you're not actually attending these schools or sending your kids to these schools, or at least even just participating in the culture, if you live near one, there's 82 in the country. So if you live near one, go to one of their games or go to a homecoming event, donate money. It can be done. You don't have to attend the school to donate. If you want to see it thrive, if you want to do something for the culture, it starts with you. Like I said, this is just my breakdown, so don't kill the messenger, but I'm going to stick by my guns and say, if you want something to really change, stop blaming other people. We get back to the mental side. No problem is solved by you pointing fingers. If you're not going to do something about it, I don't know what to say. So I'm in my take with that. Like I said, this was an interesting subject to look at because everyone's talking about this. I see it trending. I've made some comments to people I know personally who have attended HBCUs. And I said, I'm a product of one. I love Bethune-Cookman University. It was a great experience. And it led up to me being what I am today. I've been successful enough to work with the top athletes, military, organizations, corporations, and it all started from going to HBCU. So with that being said, thanks for tuning in and let me break it down. And as always, get your mind right.